recap, remove the boot, loosen your lock nut, remove your castellated nut, remove your ball joint from the inner tie rod, remove the boot, get your special tool slipped on there, pull your inner tie rod off, install the new inner tie rod with blue thread locker. Special tool, snug it back up to about how it was before. If not slightly more, I'd run slightly on the tighter side. Put your boot back on, put your lock rings back on, put your lock nut on, put your ball end on, install your ball end into your steering knuckle, I guess. Install your castellated nut, install your cotter pin, and then tighten your lock nut back up. And after that, reinstall the tire, get it aligned. Whether you do the alignment yourself or take it to Les Schwab, personally I'd take it someplace and get it done. That's just because I'm unaccustomed with the process of alignment. And that's how you replace the inner tie rod on, it's pretty much the same on most vehicles, but this specifically is a 1999 Dodge Durango, cross-compatible with a Dodge Dakota. I'm not sure what years, but there you go. You've got your ball joint, sits right there, and your inner tie rod is normally held in with this lock nut. First thing you're going to have to do is obviously remove the wheel, remove the nut that's on here, and remove your ball joint. Now, go to O'Reilly's, you can rent a ball end or a tie rod puller. This thing's going to help you out a lot because these are usually jammed on really tight. So basically you'll back this bolt off all the way, slip this U-channel over here, get this lined up right on top of there and tighten it down until it pops out. After you've done that, make sure you've cracked this, actually before you've done that, make sure you've cracked this lock nut loose. Once you've gotten this ball joint off, then you can actually remove your ball joint from your tie rod. Now your tie rod is still going to be attached back in here. What you're going to have to do is, first of all, remove the boot, which is a pain while it's back inside there. It's a little bit easier while it's outside like this. Remove the boot, and it's going to look like this, right on there. Now again, from O'Reilly's, you can rent a inner tie rod toolkit. With that, all you need to do is choose the right size tool. It'll slip on here, like so. Line up with the flats, okay? Take the other half of the tool and slip it on. Now that can turn it. Then, all you need is a 1/2-inch breaker bar. I use this articulating one, or this sliding one here. Slip it right on there. Loosen it up. Once you've cracked it loose, it's usually hand tight. And slip off the old one. Reinstallation is the opposite. You'll get your new tie rod. You'll remove the new tie rod's boot. So as I was saying, you'll you'll buy your new tie rod, you'll have to remove the new tie rod's boot, which is going to have a lock ring like so on it, which you'll have to basically squeeze. A pair of pliers here and here should do the trick, and it will come off. It may also have a small split ring slipped right into this groove, in which case you'll just have to grab a pair of pliers, grab one end, and pry it off. It's kind of a pain, but you'll get it. Remove that new boot and thread it on. Now, your new one, your old one is nice and floppy. Your new one is pretty stiff, so when you get it and it doesn't seem to articulate, don't be concerned like I was and run to O'Reilly's and ask them if they gave you the wrong part, because they probably gave you the right one. Don't forget to get some blue thread locker. You definitely want a touch of blue thread locker on here. That was a little more than necessary, but the more the merrier, right? So there we go. A little more than was needed, but that'll be fine. Slide it in, get it hand tight. Now there may be a torque for this, but I didn't find one in my Haynes manual. So I'm just going to try and put it back on with the same amount of force that I took it off with. Right about like that. The tool slipped off. Make sure you're not pushing in. If you're pushing in while you do it, your tool will slip off. Make sure you're just rotating. There we go. Alright, that's about right. So, now you need to put your boot back on. Let's see where you're aimed. Okay, yeah, we're good. Come on, there we go. A little further. That should do it. Alright. Now let's get this guy on first. He's the easy one. So just squeeze this together and push down on that band so it locks in. Now, this split ring may be a real pain in the butt. Let's find out. Part of it, and let's see if we can work the rest of it on. Yep, pain in the butt. Ouch. There we go. That wasn't too bad. Now your boot's back on. So, articulates real nice, good. Make sure you got your lock nut on. Now there is an alignment procedure that you need to do because this is your front end alignment. So I'm personally not going to align it. We buy our tires from Les Schwab. So I'm personally just going to take this to Les Schwab when I'm done and have them align it. So just to get there, I'm going to simply put my lock nut on the same amount that it was on the old one, and that'll get me close enough to get me to less Schwab without damaging anything. So that was about there. Let's see. Yeah, that looks about right. Now spin your ball joint on. And slip your ball joint into, come on now, bend it in slightly more, get in there, there we go. Grab your castellated nut, run it all the way down. And this does not have to be super tight. Basically, you can see where the hole is, hiding right there. Finger tight, I can almost get it to the next one, so I'm just going to tighten it till that next castellation lines up with it. Right, almost. Right there. Alright. You should technically buy a new cotter pin every time. I'm going to run the same old one back in. There we go. Get your cotter pin in. Grab the other end of it and pull it up. Let's hold that cotter pin in while I bend the other end up. There we go. So now there's no way that can back off with that cotter pin there. So, got us reinstalled with about the same amount of force, some thread locker in there. Got the boot on with both of our lock rings on. Got our ball end reinstalled along with our lock nut already on there and our castellated nut. Finally, make sure you tighten your lock nut up. Again, if you're doing what I'm doing, taking it to less Schwab once you're done. This isn't a giant deal, just get it pretty snug. That should do it. Really, you should use an actual wrench for this, but I didn't have the right size on me, left part of my toolbox at home when I came to my parents'. Shouldn't have done that. Oh well. Although I suppose technically I probably should have held this in place while I did that, so I wasn't putting stress on the ball joint. So, one wrench here when you do that.